From the Intellifluence headquarters in sunny Scottsdale, Arizona, this is the Intellifluence Influencer Spotlight. In each episode, we sit down with an influencer from our network and we discuss their background as well as their unique approach to influencer marketing. Mar Pages is a top Singapore influencer and a top travel influencer on Intellifluence who specializes in luxury travel, food, and wine in addition to running the very successful once-in-a-lifetime journey luxury travel blog, which also covers topics ranging from digital marketing for brands and influencers to wine tourism and reviews, as well as Mar's personal hobbies and inspiration. Mar is a former telecom strategy management consultant who one day decided there was more to life than 15-hour workdays, 7 days a week. A year after taking a sabbatical in the South Pacific, Mar decided to quit her job and open a cafe in addition to starting her blog. She eventually took a job at Google for a season, then recently left to focus full-time on her two blogs, the second called Singapore and Beyond, as well as her consulting business. So how did you get started as an influencer?
I started around 4.5 years ago. After that sabbatical, I came back to work and then I realized that I did want to quit my consulting job. Not quit any job, just my consulting job. It was far too demanding, far too many hours, always traveling, which I love. But you know, when you cannot choose how much you travel and you travel practically 7 days a week, always long haul, always far away, always 15 hours, never weekends, never holidays. I love my job, but after 8 years, I thought, it's maybe a good time for me to, at age 30 to try to think about doing something a little bit more work-life balance friendly. So I did leave my job and it took me about a year to start at Google again. So during that year is when I started my blog. I also opened a cafe. So it was a bit of an interesting year. I opened a cafe. I was making coffee, so it was quite interesting to be an expat in Singapore, living my, a very senior job in management consulting to make coffee and write. So, when there were no clients or at nights, I just started to write on my blog, mostly at the beginning for myself, and I didn't even tell anybody that I was writing it. A little bit because I always remember my grandpa saying, you should keep a diary, keep all the stories of all the places that you're traveling. So I specialized in emerging markets as a consultant. So I always worked in Middle East, Africa, Asia, places that you would never go on holidays, especially 13 years ago. Some of them were not even possible to go on holidays to or get visas. So I started to write and, I started it on a blogger blog, and then I started to realize that people were reading my things and I didn't even know who they were, right? It was not that I had told anybody, but I guess people found me on Blogger and traffic started to increase, and 6 months after I decided to just move to a normal WordPress site and continue writing, but not really in a serious business spirit, not really to make money or to turn it into my day job, just because I enjoyed very much writing and I continued to travel 50% of my time. So it kind of grew and grew. And then I attended a blogging conference once, and then I realized that there were a lot of people making full-time livings out of this, and it was actually possible. And I am a business person after 15 years in the corporate world. So that temptation, I guess, of maybe I could be doing full-time what I want in my own terms and make a living out of it. So I then started to put a little bit more focus on turning it into a job. At Google, I had taken a job that was relatively easy for me to do based on my experience. And Google has great work-life balance and encourages you very much to do other things and pursue other passions. So everybody knew that I had a blog ever since the moment I joined. So everybody was supportive and everybody always asking, where do you go on holidays? Where can we go? We have 2 kids. We want to go here. But it's just always asking for recommendations. And I built myself a business plan because, again, I'm a business person. So I built myself a business plan. And when I hit the revenue target that I felt comfortable with, I left my job at Google.
And then also on your blog, are you a wine connoisseur as well?
Yes, I grew up in a winery. My father makes wine, quite a lot of it, and I kind of grew up with this culture, right? Not really knowing that, the whole world of winemaking and so on. Just working in the farm and helping my father and so on. And my dad's business grew and grew and grew. And here in Singapore, a couple of friends of mine wanted to become wine certified, but from the wine appreciation point of view, tasting wines and knowing when the wines are formed. So I took a couple of courses with them as well. So yes, now I'm also certified, apart from obviously knowing it because I grew up with it all my life.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, the founder of our company loves wines, so I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you about it.
I mean, I live here in Singapore, right? And around it, you have new latitude wines, which is interesting, right? Wine being made in Thailand, wine being made in Bali, in Vietnam, Myanmar, these sort of places where, most wine connoisseurs will tell you that, I mean, what is this, right? Like, what do you mean wine is made, outside this latitude where wines should not be made, right? So these wines, I find it interesting. I find it interesting going to visit the wineries and understanding how they make wine, how they have 2 harvests a year or even 3 harvests a year. So this is interesting, but if you want to go for like just proper wines, let's say a little bit more, I hope nobody feels offended, but a little bit more the traditional wines, right? The New World wines are the closest ones to me is Australia. So Perth, I very much love the Margaret River region of Perth, which is around 5 hours from Singapore. So I have been 3 times already, and you can go for the weekend. I mean, it's a little bit of a stretch, but you could do it for the weekend because the flights just work well. So I would fly there and then rent a car and go down to the Margaret River region. And what is beautiful about that region is that it's Australia's most premium wine. So they make only 4% of the wines, but 20% of the premium wines of Australia. So the majority are very premium wines, very Bordeaux style wines, and it's by the sea, so it's beautiful. It's western coast of Australia. It's these like massive surfing waves, these beautiful beaches, and then kangaroos jumping around the vineyards, and it's just all very scenic and very beautiful. You have everything, great food, fantastic people. It's just great.
As a successful influencer who has a lot of specialties and interests, how do you structure your day?
My days are pretty... There's 2 types of days, the days when I am on the road and the days when I am at home. So when I'm at home, my days are relatively easy and simple. I get up, I sit on my desk and I work, and then I usually have meetings. Because I am not nomadic, I actually have a base and I live in Singapore where there are lots of businesses. Some of my clients are local, so I do have a lot of face-to-face meetings, which I guess a lot of digital nomads wouldn't have, because if you're always on the road, you may have meetings that they will be, this type of format. So I do have calls, but a lot of times I also have face-to-face meetings with clients here. So maybe around 1 day a week, I would spend it all at home without actually going to any meetings. But in the rest of the days, I always have either networking events, because I'm very involved in the entrepreneurial community and everything that has to do with like the online world in Singapore, and then also client meetings. So usually I try to put them all on the same day so that I only have to go to town and have all the meetings at once. And then I work. If I don't have any events or any meetings or any dinners or any family or friends get-togethers in the evenings, I just work through the night. So I may have dinner, stop a little bit, watch a little bit of TV, and then continue working, maybe on the things that require me to less concentrated. If I need to scheduling on social media, or if I need to read things or like keep updated on some stuff, or do more like mechanical administrative work, I keep it for the evenings where I'm less fresh. I'm a morning person, so in the evenings I'm less concentrated. And if I'm on the road, then it's completely different, right? I will get up at sunrise, always make sure that I don't miss the sunrise, because the light is very important, and that's a little bit difficult in Asia because sunrise can be at 5:30 or like at 5, so it's like really early, but I still not miss it. And then just through the day, schedule all the photos that I need to take. My work is very content driven, obviously, like a lot of other people in the travel industry, so it's very important to get the right photos. I always fly the drone, so I'm very dependent on the weather. For both things, I'm very dependent on the weather, so I'll be like constantly keeping an eye on what's going on, whether the sun is coming, whether there are clouds, and just take a lot of photos and go around the place and figure out, what is it that I need to take photos of, who do I need to talk to understand certain things, what is it that makes the place unique. I am obviously talking about the cases where I work with a hotel, which is usually the type of brands that I work with. And so this is how the day would go normally. And then if I'm in a place where there are excursions that I can go and do outside of the hotel, then I would also schedule that. But I usually have a good idea before arriving. But yes, a lot of my time gets spent on basically taking photos and talking to people. There's not a lot of like laying by the pool time.
Oh, okay, yeah. And how do you see influencer marketing evolving? How do you think a brand might be interacting with you in 5 years or so?
I see more and more, because I've been doing this for a while, and I also help certain brands work with influencers because of my background in the corporate world. A lot of brands approach me with like, I want to work with influencers, but I don't know how. So I have a wider perspective than just my own channels. from these brands that may work with other influencers. And I see obviously a clear trend towards video. So more and more brands, although, in Asia it's not the same as in the US, right? It is a little bit lagging. So it comes later, I feel here. So brands in general are far less sophisticated, far less knowledgeable, far less experienced in working with influencers. So there's a lot of them that have never worked with influencers and don't know where to start or how to make the most of it, or make mistakes. They just ask for the wrong things and obviously get the wrong return. But I see them more and more even in Asia asking for video. So even I myself, I focus more these days on, rather than just selling them my influence in the point of view of my reach and my, the people that might actually see my content, I prefer to position it more as, selling an asset, which might be the content that they are getting. So again, moving more towards video. So I see that happening. I think it's slowly but steady. And in 5 years, we may still be talking about the same here. It's just it just takes a bit of time for people to learn it. And there are a lot of smaller hotels that are, more boutique, more one type of hotel that, they will take time to get there, far more time than brands. But even, international brands in Asia, they sometimes have very rudimentary and very old-fashioned process for working with influencers that are still tied to how they used to work with PR companies and journalists. The same thing. Can you please give me the, advertising equivalent? Can you please give me all of these things that are clearly what is the circulation of your publication? I get asked these questions all the time. I was filling a form yesterday that had all the questions related to journalists and nothing to do with influencers. So it's going to take time. I think in 5 years, it will be definitely more video. It might also be more, brands becoming a little bit more sophisticated and going more the SEO way. So instead of approaching bloggers and saying, please write a review about me, being a bit smarter and figuring out what will get them bigger traffic. And maybe that's not a review, depending on, reviews are like the 2-page spreads of the newspaper, Every brand wants to have their 2-page spread on a newspaper. Look how nice all our photos. But who reads those things? After they've been published, it's hard for a lot of people to actually, for their content, that type of content to be found, unless you really write those type of things. And in my case, it happens because I write a lot and that's my niche. So I get found like that. But for most people, that's not where the brand will get their value. They might get the value if the influencer writes something that will actually be found, depending on their niche. And by that, I mean guides, for example. If you're somebody who writes about backpacking guides, it's far better for a hotel maybe to be included in one of these guides than for the blogger to write a review of that hotel, right? So I see them getting a little bit smarter and a little bit more ROI oriented, rather than the traditional make me 5 posts on Facebook and write me a review type of thing, which they would get from journalists, and they come from that mentality. But from bloggers, it's a different medium. It's long term, it's online, it's a different type of animal, right?
Right, absolutely. That makes sense. Do you have any resources that you can recommend to aspiring influencers? And don't be shy. It can be your book. It can be any resource that you recommend.
There are a couple of Facebook groups that I joined that are quite good for this. They're very travel specific. Well, actually, no, they're not travel specific. Now they are pretty much all industry. There's a blog by a blogger that is called Digital Nomad Wannabe. And she used to be a travel blogger, a family travel blogger, and she sold her blog not so long ago and decided to focus more on the part of the making money and the business behind the blog. And her Facebook group is very, very active and very, very useful, and is entirely devoted to making money. So if by aspiring influencer, you mean somebody who wants to make a full-time living out of this, starting there is a good place to start. I wish this group existed when I started. I came very late to the game. My blog was already 3 years old when I decided that I wanted to make it my full-time job, right? So I made lots of mistakes, and then undoing those things is far harder than starting from scratch in the right way, right? So, nowadays I see people that within a year, they have blogs that are 100,000 views, right? It took me a while to get there in my mistake road, right? So it's much better to start well, and this is a good group. So that's Digital Nomad Wannabe. She has a blog as well that goes with it, where a lot of her case studies are, and she focuses very much on monetizing your blog via affiliates. So that's her niche. So if you want to learn how to start a blog that will make money through affiliates and buying guides, and she also has a section on just pure niche sites. She's pretty good, Sharon Gourlay, that's her name. She's very good, and that's a resource that I check almost every day. I don't really check other resources. My book that you mentioned is not necessarily just for influencers. It's more general if you want to make money online. And that can be anything. You could be a copywriter and have no blog and have nothing, just be copywriter. Or you could be a full-blown blogger and then have a blog and have a website and live off your website. So there's 30 different ways you can make money online. So it's more targeted at people who they may not necessarily want to be a blogger, or maybe they do, but they want to have a job that is independent, that's not online, that they can do from anywhere. So if that's, some people say, I want independence, I want to work from home, I want to work from the beach, although that's really not very practical. But they want that and they don't know how that works, and then that's 30 ways with like tips and tools that you can use to do that. But Sharon is really for like bloggers more than just influencers. There's obviously ways you can make online just as an influencer and you don't need to have a blog, but in her case it's more like from an online website, how do you make the most of it?
Okay, all right, that's great. No, thank you for those resources. That's very helpful. I guess my last question for you today is what's the strangest influencer request you've ever received? Are there any where you just kind of shook your head, like what were they thinking?
I get a lot of emails from people who want links, and those are very weird requests sometimes. Very, very weird requests. But I think this one I didn't receive myself, but the weirdest that I've ever heard is a friend of mine who is an Italian blogger who got an email from a church who was trying to get links in exchange for prayers. And I think that takes the top.
Want to join Intellifluence as an influencer for free? It's easy. Visit Intellifluence.com, click on the influencers link, and then click on the Join for Free button to sign up. Once you have registered, you will get immediate access to our influencer marketplace where you can browse relevant offers from brands and apply on the spot. You'll also be eligible to receive attractive product and service pitches from brands. There's absolutely no cost to join as an influencer, so we hope you take advantage of our service. Also, be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and well, you know the drill. Until our next episode, keep being awesome.